Mike Gill from the Mortgage Specialist. You saw the trial. You saw Judge McHugh. What a corrupt court, corrupt trial. Now I'm going to show you to the extremes that they've done to cover up their crimes. Extortion, fraud, forgery. You get to see it. Now I'm just going to take you back for just a second. You're going to go back to just a couple of snaps of that video from the trial. And it's going to have to do with a forgery. And then I'm going to take you through the path of what this forgery traveled. And you tell me what you think. Dan, play the clip.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a copy of Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 to refer to. I ask you first to refer to Exhibit number 1, sir. Could you please confirm for the jury that that is your signature on page 3 of Exhibit 1?
It's not. But we can move on.
It's not your signature.
100% it's not.
Whose is it?
You got me. I only have about 1,000 signatures over there. Match this one up with one of them. I went home after court thinking about that forgery. And why? And I figured it out. It was more of a release than a fee agreement. They knew from the very beginning they were going to commit fraud. That's why it's forged. And the forgery itself, a third grader could forge my signature, unfortunately. This wasn't even close. How could they even make such a mistake? You know why? It was the first document you would have had signed. They didn't know my signature. And then there was the insistence of the mailing. Why that? It's because he couldn't say that he saw me witness it. Because if it is a forgery, he would have been lying and he could have been trapped. These guys are pretty difficult to put in a corner. So he says he mails it. Are we to assume, now that we know it's a forgery, somebody went in my mailbox, took out that document, forged it, signed it, and mailed it back to him? They were in financial trouble. They couldn't take a chance for me to read this agreement and say, what the hell is this? That's why it was forged. And you know who forged it? And we have many figures proving it. It was Dollar Sedgwick herself. So they worked in conjunction together. In fact, if you look at the fee agreement, it refers to one other document. And we have that document. And guess what? That's the forgery too. By the same person, clearly. Well, then it hit me. They're going to have a mistrial. They can't keep going. I went to court this next morning, as you're looking at right now, knowing that they were going to kill this case right then and there. They had to shut us off, and that was it. Watch what happens. Your Honor, he just presented a forged document that I can clearly prove was forgery. And then we can go on why they forged it. I never saw this document. I can make a statement now, Your Honor.
You can make a closing statement, I suppose. You have one more shot at them. You can make a
I'm telling you, I believe this is criminal. I believe you didn't make it very clear to me. It was this. Mr. Hilliard asked me a question. We only have two parts of evidence, the bills and that agreement. The signature is so far off in this agreement, it is comical. You know why? It's the first agreement I would have signed with them. They didn't know my signature. Why? You remember Mr. Ross testifying? We don't make any promises. I was a multi-millionaire. They were in a recession. They took that with the intent of making millions and not having me go after them. I never saw that document. Now, you want to know? He said that he mailed it.
Your Honor.
It was the same pen.
We we stop for a
Yeah,
minute?
go ahead. What's your position on this?
I object to everything that's going on, Your Honor. It's inappropriate, and I'd like to make a motion outside the presence of the jury.
Come up from that.
I want to tell you this, I want a order right now to have that document preserved. And I would like that document in the courtroom tomorrow. Because we're going to find out that Mr. Ross signed that document. And the reason why that was that they did what? That was done by the same pen. That document was in only one person's control. Wiggins and Norrie. Who signed the document? He did. Want to bet that's his signature? So the first act in this whole divorce was fraud. Was forging my name because they knew they were going to rob us. It's that simple. The same pen signed the agreement. And you can see it's not mine. They never saw my signature. This whole, and the piece of evidence was the bill and this. They are trying to get Mr. Ross off on a mistrial right now. I want you to know that's what's going on because we caught them bold.
Come up from it.
And I want a preservation order on that agreement. That is the principal part of their evidence. And it's fraud, and it's forgery, and they know we can. Now the video you just saw was a trial that happened on March 24th. And then the next day, the 25th. And what you hear is me speaking that evening on the 24th, knowing what was going to happen in the morning. But that brings us to today. What happened with that forgery? Because that forgery comes with a story. I'm going to tell you the story. You ready? What you would see in that trial, later on I attached a letter from Mr. Hilliard saying that they couldn't find the document. They couldn't find the original fee agreement. Or really it was a release. I called it then. Remember the preservation order? Well, guess what? No need, because they didn't have it. Now, why didn't they have it? It was their own fee agreement. In fact, what Mr. Hilliard said, it went to Jim Tenn, the next attorney. Well, let's go to the next attorney. This is a baker's box. Holds about 1,000 copies. This is just one of 16 boxes that Jim Tenn gave us. Now, Jim Tenn, the Path Bar Association president, is a crook himself. But he's a very organized crook. So 16 boxes. You know how many originals we found? One. This one. The fee agreement for Wiggins and Norrie. So I want you to understand this. I had a gentleman that worked for me named Julian Long, paralegal. Julian found that document timely because it was shortly within 24 hours of the trial. He just happened to bump into the exact document that we asked them to preserve. That said they didn't have and said it was in the tens box. Well, 16,000 approximately documents later, I sent Julian out to find another original, just one more, of those 16 boxes. This is Julian and people that worked with him and witnessed. Guess what? Not one original, but that one. Guess what? So how did that get there? At the same time, I've had my controller, who's been my controller for 30 years. She announced on the same day, oh, maybe I signed it. Really? She's only known my signature for 30 years. She doesn't sign it that way. We got Julian finding it, my controller saying she might have signed it the same day where the past expert, forgery expert, calls me up saying, oh, maybe it is Lisa, and then I question her and say, I know that it's not. I know my signature. Lisa knows my signature. You know how fast she changed her story? You know how fast she started saying Donald Sedgwick, and I don't want to get involved, and I have another big case? Guess what? They got to the expert. You see, my paralegal, Julian, they gave him the document, the plan. They couldn't have it. And I'll tell you why in a second. Chain of custody. See? It was theirs. I fired Julian. Before I did, I asked him. You know what Julian said to me? I'm a good person. I didn't want to do this. This wasn't what I wanted. Then asked me if he was leave, and he left. Now you think about that. Lisa Tracy, she was terminated too that day. Now, you don't want to know why they did it? Why Lisa did it? Lisa's husband got in trouble 4 or 5 years ago. Quite frankly, that could have gone to jail for 20 years or so. He didn't. You know who got him off? Shaheen and Gordon. You know who solicited them when they were in trouble? R.P. Saunders. Remember R.P. Saunders from Shaheen? This is how the extortion works. They threatened by taking her children away. If she would destroy evidence, hire attorneys that they gave them that were criminals, give them a heads up on everything we do. And the latest was, tell them you wrote it. See? That's extortion. That's the window of darkness of who these people are that they don't want you to see. This is a person that I felt like a sister. This is who they are. Julian didn't come here to do this. They made him do this. Now you want to know why? Voila! We have an original. The one they tried to sneak in here. And you know why? I want you to take a good look at the original. You're going to see that it was done by a felt pen. Top and bottom. Guess what? They couldn't have you see this. It would have been done at the same time. And now that this is a forgery, it would have brought it down to them. Right. The people use the same black felt pen. I want you to ask yourself, when's the last time you used a black felt pen? Never mind, 2 of us. So now you know why they did it. Now you know the leverage and to the level of these people will reach out and do. There was the president of Wiggins and Norrie. This is Judge McHugh. This is Hilliard, the president of the Bar Association. And don't miss this. It's the extortion arm of this organization of crime. Is the Shaheens. Is turning around and saying, do you want your husband to go to jail? Do you want your babies to be taken from you? That's who they are. You think about that. That's that leverage. Why don't we ask Julian under oath who strong-armed him? I'll tell you who it was. I'll show you who it was. This is a common occurrence of how they operate. You get the proof, you get the facts. Before I close, I just want to give you a trifecta of crime. I want you to go back and refer back to the last video where the felt tip pen on both signatures. That means this was completely fraud on the court. So we'll call that forgery. But we're not done. How about bribery? How about political bribery? John Byrd, representative in New Hampshire. I had a meeting with him June of last year. Dick Gagnon from the Regress Committee was also in that meeting. That meeting, John asked me if I thought it was bribery, if Shaheen was willing to forgive his bill, his legal bills, him getting legal advice for free. He owed $7,000 at the time. And if this isn't true, well then go back to June of last year and see if he didn't owe Shaheen $7,000.
which also means you sold pretty cheap. So the answer I gave you then is the answer I give you now. Yes, John, it is bribery. What? So he gets your vote? We're not done. Shaheen again, bribery. Let's go with extortion. All right? I want you to take a look at this check. It's for $100,000. And if you look here, and we'll superimpose it, you'll get to see it. It says for a traffic intersection only. It was a traffic light. Any other use would be unlawful. It says so right in the check here. Now, this check was dated 12/19/06. You know who forced me to pay it? You keep pushing me to pay it? R.P. Saunders from Shaheen's office, under Bill Shaheen's instructions. You know who got the $100,000? Because guess what? There is no traffic light. There never could be. I talked to the people who created the traffic study. Couldn't happen. They stole the $100,000. What's the bet? And we're going to find out, because I'm going to sue the city of Haverhill, that this 100 went into Bill Shaheen's pocket. For people who don't understand the word extortion, that's extortion. That's the strong arm of organized crime. Now, I'm speaking to Scott Brown, who decided to come to New Hampshire after being in Massachusetts and losing an election. Well, being from New Hampshire for my whole life, you and I both understand, citizens of New Hampshire, that that's difficult to do, to come into our state and call it home after a few months. Unless Scott Brown knows something. And unless he's a moron, he does. He knows what I'm saying here is true. And he knows Shaheen's in trouble. One or two things. One, he knows. Now, did they cut a deal to have Shaheen maybe resign and not run? Watch. When Hemingway, the gentleman running for governor, says the Republican Party told him not to mention FRM and Kelly Ayotte. Could that be the deal? Could a deal been struck? Because Scott Brown has intentions of being president. So he's not going to Hampshire to lose. So he knows he's going to win. Is he leveraging them? Or is he going to come out with all this evidence, more than maybe what I can give him, and say, I'm here to clean the state up? It's either one or the other. Either you cut a deal and know what they've done, or you haven't cut a deal and known what they've done and going to use that as leverage to move them out. Remember, people of New Hampshire, it's one or the other. And if he doesn't come forwards, he's either too stupid to be senator or too corrupt. Thank you.